And it's another night of fun in the weather world. Winter weather advisories up in northern New England. We have flood watches and flash flood warnings all across the south and starting to poke their nose into the southeast, as well as parts of the Appalachians. Dense fog advisories. You can't see a thing. Southern Michigan, all the way down to Arkansas, west to Oklahoma, northwest into the plains, and mostly quiet weather in the western part of the United States. So we will, of course, tackle all of this. And of course, we're going to talk about Sunday into Monday for the East. All of that right here on tonight's Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast, which is brought to you by Tempest by Weatherflow. Get the revolutionary Tempest weather system, and you too can join the fastest growing observing weather network on the planet. The link is to the link is on the descriptor to this podcast. Use the coupon code I winter 2324. I'm way off. We're starting at 8 o'clock. We're way off. Winter 2324 is the coupon code, and if you use it, you will get
I hope I'm right with this. 10% off?
oh yes, that's one thing that doesn't change. It's definitely 10% off. And I got to change one more thing here, which it's not letting me do. So that everybody can see our beautiful faces right on the screen. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to tonight's Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast. Late start tonight as Joe Rayo did his solar eclipse talk thing at the Poughkeepsie Library. We're glad to see everybody on the chat board. Those of you who are lurking in the background, a big hello and big hug to you. Subscribe to my YouTube channel so you don't miss the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast, which is on Sunday through Thursdays at 7:35, and the occasional Friday and Saturday when there is a storm lurking about. We'll let you know tomorrow if we're going to add an extra day or two to this. And be sure if you like the show, you could show us a kindness by hitting the like button because we do like to go over 100 likes because Joe's got this obnoxious bell that he gets to ring right in my ear because I got headsets on.
Some
Uh,
people some people
when
want
we get to 100 likes,
some people want when we get to 200 likes to use a horn or whatever, but I don't think I'm going to do that.
no, please don't. You know, we could, of course, contact the cathedral at Notre Dame to see if they would ring the bells for us. I mean, that's kind of at that level that they should ring, that they should ring the church bells. But no matter. Okay, so the gloom. I mean, how gloom and doomy was it today? Because I did notice on the satellite this afternoon that from central New Jersey on southward, it broke out a little bit.
Well, it never broke out here, and yeah, I was. I actually told Renata, who, by the way, I'm not sure if she might be using the laptop, although I don't see her on the chat board here. But it looks like Renata's trusty iPad has finally met its end after 8 years. Uh,
Wow.
trying to she's been trying to charge the battery up, but the battery just continues to stay at. So I think we're going to have to get her a new iPad.
Well, the old laptop was 7 years old, and of course, I finally bit the bullet and got the new laptop, which has got all the bells and whistles, all the extra memory, all the extra RAM. So we didn't have any circles of death yesterday, and uh, the chat board's actually working really well now too because I can type without delays, and that's a big plus. So.
But I will say that it was rather depressing I was depressed for a while. And I said to Renata, I said, I wonder if it's the weather because it's been just so gloomy uh, for the last several days around here.
Yes, then you've got more to go. I mean, you have tomorrow, you've got tomorrow night. I was thinking that maybe later in the day, Friday, you probably will see some improvement. And of the two weekend days, Saturday's the day, correct?
Yeah, so many of the local weathercasters have been promoting Friday. Oh, Friday, it's going to be well up in the 50s. Friday, some of you may even touch 60. And now, of course, the backdoor cold front has shown its ugly face. And now here in the lower Hudson Valley, I went for a high temperature on Friday, Joe, of 45 to maybe 52, maybe.
All right. Well, I'm kind of on the same page with you. I'm a little cautious about temperatures. South Jersey might be a different story, though. It may make it, they might make it to 60 there, and southern Pennsylvania and points southward probably will be into the 60s at least. But yeah, you're going to probably, the further north you go, I think it's going to definitely be more of a struggle. And of course, even sometimes in the worst lurking patterns, and I have to say that this weather pattern that we're in, it's not so, I don't, worse may not be the word. It's just a strange weather pattern overall with the way the upper air is all set up. But we could get into that in a little while. I know there's the chatter has started with Sunday into Monday, and of course you have snow maps getting thrown all over the place. And I'm just going to put some caution in here, as I have been saying for the last number of days. It's all about that high in eastern Canada, and that could work in both directions. It could be weaker than modeled, in which case it will be mostly rain and probably, you know, not just at the coast, but probably for a ways inland. Uh, maybe some snow at the end in inland areas. On the other hand, if the high is strong enough, you're going to get cold air that's going to bleed down. There's some upper air dynamics I think that are in play here too, that makes things rather complicated. And another possibility, Joe, is I was just kind of looking at the upper air of the GFS, where the flow in Canada is northwest, and this next system comes up from the south, and it tries to go northward, but then it gets, it's going to run into some northwest flow, and there's a delicate balance there, and then you could wind up. It's not impossible that you could wind up seeing Sunday storm getting suppressed and being weaker and going out further south. So there's a whole bunch of different ways that this could work out, and I'm in, certainly from what I've seen today, I'm in no position to give any kind of clarity to it. I think you're probably going to have to wait till Friday really to get some real clarity about how this is all going to play.
And before we continue, I just want to thank David Schwartz. He was at my eclipse talk for Poughkeepsie tonight, Joe. And I commented that along the eclipse track, there are hotels now that are asking for $1,000 a night for a room. And David Schwartz said something to the effect like, if they charge $1,000 a night, they better, hoist me up and bring me to the best viewing spot. I mean, that's honest to goodness true. But that's American capitalism, David. I mean, if there's money to be made, you know that the corporate people will be out trying to make it. And Joe, as far as
When
what
you
you just,
won't even get a free cup of coffee for that.
and you won't even get even free. Yeah, absolutely. How did he say?
No free breakfast, no cup of coffee. They're going to charge you for parking.
Continental breakfast, whatever. That's becoming the almost extinct at most
Yes,
hotels.
continental breakfast. If you want it, you need to go to another continent to get it.
Exactly. As far as the weather for Monday, Joe, I mean, how many days off is that? Today is Wednesday, it's Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, 5 days. 5 days. And in the way this weather pattern has been, as you said, a very strange type of pattern, I'm not going to put anything down 5 days in advance as to what may happen. Come back, well,
Fine, look, we talk. It's perfectly fine to talk about it. We've made our point clear, so that unless somebody's not paying attention, they're not going to come back and say, "Well, you said on Wednesday," that ain't going to happen. Uh, so but of course, we're going to get into all of that. So, um, uh, we I think we should begin, shall we?
surely.
Yes, it's always good to quote Macintosh, the Gopher twins. All right. On the watches and warnings map, the big deal really is what's going on along the coastal bend of Texas and areas inland, East Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, uh, the northwestern third of Georgia, where we've got rain and some thunderstorms and those reds that you see in the counties in Mississippi and into southeast Louisiana, flash flooding, as well as a couple of counties there in Texas. We have flood watches up also for central and northern West Virginia. They've got snow cover there to deal with, and some of the heavier rain might get to them. It may not. The threshold for flooding may not be that high with the snow cover on the ground there. We don't have that issue here, thankfully. And we have winter weather advisories up for northeastern New York, also for most of Vermont, New Hampshire, and into Maine. Do they still have what is this? No, then also some dense fog advisories now, Joe, in northeastern Pennsylvania. I love this map. Take a look. You'll see it on the screen. Look at that. There's no fog at Newark. There's no fog in the Bronx or in southern Westchester, but they've got the advisories for dense fog. There's a hole there. Actually, there's fog in New York Harbor, okay, but it's not in Staten Island. It's not in Queens, Brooklyn, Manhattan, the Bronx, and a couple of two counties. I think Essex and Union County in New Jersey. Okay, that's I didn't make that forecast. Well, maybe there isn't any fog. Why don't we take a look? Just let's sort of lapse. Let's look at. I'll bring up. I'll just pull up the observation list. Just take a look. And they got this quirk in the office there where if you click on it, it goes back to the original map for some reason. Okay, so some light rain around New York City. Peterborough has fog 3/4 of a mile, but no restricted visibilities there around the city stations. Actually, nobody's got restricted visibilities yet. Poughkeepsie's at a half a mile. Oh, a quarter of a mile at White Plains.
Yeah,
Peterborough is.
and
I'm
they have
sorry.
and they have heavy drizzle. Have you ever heard of that term? Heavy drizzle?
No, it's a new one on me.
Heavy drizzle and fog and a visibility of 0.15 miles.
Next we'll see is imposing mist.
Yeah.
So anyway, there is fog around, so we'll respect what the Weather Service did and just leave it at that.
And
I have
fog
friends there who come on this show. I got to be nice.
And for those who still have snow, and I'll tell you, up until yesterday, my all of my lawn uh, still had a couple inches of snow, and that snow is going away real fast now. Because if there's one thing that gets rid of snow quickly, even more quickly than a bright sunny day with temperatures above freezing, it'll be fog. Fog is the snow eater, and I have a feeling, Joe, when I wake up tomorrow morning, there's going to be very little snow left around my
Uh,
property.
Probably. Actually, a lot of spots in the eastern U.S. have dense fog advisories tonight. You think this was a spring map? Northeast Georgia, western South Carolina, also up in across much of northern Pennsylvania, actually all of eastern Pennsylvania, southern New York, uh, a good chunk of Ohio, southern half of Michigan on the lower peninsula, all of Indiana, just about all of Illinois, uh, southeast Wisconsin, all of Missouri, Iowa, into Nebraska, Kansas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, and northern Texas. The West actually is pretty quiet. We've got a few winter weather advisories up in the Wasatch in Utah and a couple of counties in western Colorado, and that really is about it when it comes to that. And here's our satellite loop, and like it's been the last few days, slivers. I mean, literally slivers, Joe, of sunshine today in parts of Colorado and New Mexico, into eastern Utah, and even up in parts of northern Wyoming into parts of Montana, and that's about western Dakotas. Slivers of sunshine there. We've got a little. There were some breaks, as I said, from southern New Jersey, the southern half of New Jersey, and then points out. But now that areas around New Jersey have clouded over again, and we still have all this Gulf moisture. I mean, all this bright white cloud cover. You see the bursting here of these bright white clouds. So there are thunderstorms. It hasn't been much in the way of severe weather, but a lot of these thunderstorms producing some very heavy rains there. Excuse
And
me.
and this satellite picture, by the way, this satellite loop that you're looking at right now, would be the nightmarish scenario for the upcoming April eclipse because that area of cloud cover extends right along the entire path of the total eclipse from Texas all the way up through the Tennessee and Ohio River Valley into the eastern Great Lakes, upstate New York, northern New England, and Atlantic Canada. I mean, there you go, folks. This is the worst case scenario, which could very well happen, I might add, in early April. Joe kept saying that it looks very much more like a. What are you writing, Joe? JR. I'm laughing now, but if this is the case on April the 8th, I'm going to be crying quite a bit. But this is the scenario that you would normally expect in the springtime in April, and it could very well happen. We got to hope that that doesn't. Maybe we'll get rid of all of the lousy weather now, so that by April we'll have used it all up, and all we'll have left is just lots of sunshine. But it is. You talk about doom and gloom. I agree, Joe. This is a doom and gloom, not just for here in the tri-state area, but practically everybody east of the Mississippi.
It's quite the conveyor belt too. I mean, it starts out in the Pacific, crosses Mexico, goes up through Texas, and then just streams all the way up into the Northeast.
Yeah, it's bad.
It is, and you don't. You're right. I'm teasing you, but I don't. You definitely do not want to see that come eclipse time.
Joe
It's rain.
Rayo, Tom Contino, Joe Ray, are you planning to lead a trip to see the eclipse, perhaps give talks in the days ahead of the eclipse? No, no. I have done more than my fair share of leading expeditions and tours for eclipses. This one I plan to see with my wife, my sister, my daughter, her fiance, um, my son, and my daughter-in-law have other plans, unfortunately. But I am not leading groups for this eclipse. So you'll have to sign on with somebody else, Tom.
Yes, we've got rain on the radar now. Initially, this rain surge is actually going north of New York City. New York City is sort of on the edge of it, and Long Island, and there's some steadier rain up by you, or just about getting ready to get to you, up the Hudson Valley to Albany, and also back across the northern part of Pennsylvania into southwest Pennsylvania. Also seeing rain moving north of Lake Erie and up through upstate New York. The northern upstate New York, the northern edge of this is some freezing and frozen precipitation, especially when it gets up into central and northern Maine. And here's what it looks like now for me, Joe. It's getting very close. I think I walked the dog already, thankfully, but there's some heavy downpours just to my west, and they're moving east. They're just to the west northwest of Atlanta on I-75, going up toward Chattanooga. We've got heavy rains across Alabama into Mississippi. There were many more flash flood warnings a couple of hours ago. We're down to three, it looks like. Two in southeast Louisiana around New Orleans, and another one north of Biloxi in Mississippi. Also seeing some heavy rains again in East Texas, and even back further inland up toward Del Rio, seeing some heavy rains, and those are moving up into central Texas. We've got some rain and some mountain snows moving into the Pacific Northwest, but really nothing that's overly problematic in that part of the country. The Storm Prediction Center, our friends at SPC, earlier today they had a slight risk of severe weather for southeast Louisiana, Joe. That's gone, but they've got the marginal risk from South Texas up the coastal bend, much of the southern third of Louisiana, southern half of Mississippi, and southwestern Alabama. Just a marginal risk. And there, I didn't see any severe thunderstorm watches that went up today. Also, for tomorrow, the marginal risk covers southeastern half of Louisiana, much of Mississippi except the northwest, all of Alabama and the Florida Panhandle, and just going into westernmost Georgia. And on day three, which now takes us to Friday into Saturday, no severe weather is being indicated here, but they do have an area of general thunderstorms from East Texas to the southeast coast and then up to about southern Virginia. So that's with the last storm system that's going to be coming out. So you can figure that the low is probably going to track just north of that line where they have the general thunderstorms from southern Oklahoma and southern Arkansas, northern Mississippi, northern Alabama, and then on up into cutting across into Virginia. So the low track is probably going to be just north of that. So that'll be interesting to see how that plays out. Big rains. Do you have the drought monitor handy by any chance?
I could get it.
Would you please, so that we could take a look at what's going on in the south, particularly in the lower Mississippi Valley, because that area is getting pounded with rain, but the drought is still going, even though they've had rain over the last couple of months. But this one's pretty sizable, so maybe it gets alleviated. So if you can, uh, I've already turned on the share, so you could bring the map up at your shopping convenience.
All right, I will take full advantage of that.
Oh, please do.
Do, 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 do. Oh, no, that's not it.
Oh, Chuck Cardillo pointing out, we were talking about what the mountains were that were up in Vermont. Those are the Green Mountains, he says.
Well, yeah, I said that yesterday.
Oh,
The green,
okay.
the Green Mountains of Vermont, the White Mountains of New Hampshire. And we were trying to determine if the Green Mountains extended all the way down to southern Vermont. And somebody had pointed out that the Berkshires, when you cross over into from Massachusetts to Vermont, that the Berkshires automatically become the Green Mountains. I didn't think the Green Mountains extended that far south, though. But they,
Um, Go ahead. I'm sorry.
but here you see now you're talking about the drought scenario being alleviated to a degree. Look at this, Joe. I mean, I'm talking
Well, I
about
mean,
up.
it's taken a while, and it's not like they haven't gotten any rain in the last couple of months. They have, but I mean, this is how bad the drought is. The drought was, and I can tell you from my drives to my sisters in Mississippi that I did in the over the summer and in the fall. I mean, everything was burned. Everything was burned.
I mean, like here's Louisiana, and I know that they've had lots of rain in recent days. But look at this now. Here in the yellow is abnormally dry. Then we translate to kind of a light orange color or salmon color. That's moderate drought. Here is the orange color. That's severe drought. The red is extreme drought. And in these dark shades, these dark hues, which is here and over here, this is exceptional drought. Also exceptional drought. I guess this is where New Orleans is, right? New Orleans, they're in an exceptional drought.
Yes, they are.
Incredible.
Yeah, I mean, this is how bad the drought was, Joe, that it's taken all this time because, they have seen above average rainfall in the last couple of months, but I mean, the drought came over the summer. I mean, everything was baked in concrete. So, like initially, probably a lot of that rain that came down just ran off. But now, at least with what's coming down now, I would think that this will, we'll see some improvements.
Ex-
We're not going to go to no drought at all, but the extreme and exceptional areas will probably shrink some when we look at this a week from now.
This is Mississippi, and Mississippi, its extreme southern end of Mississippi, has no problems, no drought to be concerned with. Then just to the north, we have abnormally dry conditions. Then we have the moderate drought. Then we have the severe drought. Extreme drought is in red, and yeah, we have exceptional drought up here in northwestern Mississippi and a slice of western Mississippi here. That's Hinds County and also Warren County in Mississippi, and all of these counties up here are in exceptional drought as well. So it's not over yet. They're still going to need quite a bit more in the way of rainfall, but boy, I tell you, they can use every drop that they can get. Even though when you see on the national news, these places, oh, it's so terrible. Oh, the road washed out. Or I mean, what are you going to do? You need the water to break this drought. A drought buster. You need that sort of thing, and looks like they're going to get more of that in the days to come.
All right, and by the way, this is dated January 18th, so that's 6 days ago. So obviously, nothing that's happened in the last 6 days is taken into account in
Right,
this map. Um,
right.
Mr. Ruben Fairchild asks, how long does a pattern change typically last? Last night you said one took place, which it did. 8 days is 8 days a locked in pattern change. We did change. Actually, I would argue that the pattern was not 8 days; it was actually 2 weeks. The week before, when we had those two major storms go to the Great Lakes, and last week with all the bitter cold air, that was the pattern change from what we had in December, which lasted about 3 weeks. Then we had to go through about 3 weeks of grueling, grinding, you know, the process of the change. And now we've kind of gone back to that. I would say that most times in the winter you lock into a basic pattern that lasts for 4 to 6 weeks, and then you get a break in the middle. Then you get a break in the middle, and that was for 100 likes, by the way. Then you get a break in the middle, and then most of the time you'll revert back to the original pattern that you started with. But this winter's been a little bit different because I think probably you could make a case that with the El Nino and the way the polar vortex has been behaving, that there's been, I think, much more volatility than what you would normally have seen. And in other words, these patterns are not lasting long. They lock in for a couple of weeks and then they change. And Now we've gone through that process, and now I think we're going to go through that process again. Maybe whatever we wind up with, at least from what I'm seeing, if the CFS forecast is right, which has been pretty consistent, and I'm starting to see some the ensemble starting to go in that direction later in the forecast period. That the next pattern change when it comes may last for more than just 2 weeks. Maybe this one will last 3 or 4. But on average with patterns, 4 weeks, maybe 5. Every once in a while, you'll get into a pattern that lasts like 8 or 9 weeks. That's rare, but it does happen from time to time. And I would point to last winter, where the pattern stayed virtually locked in from January to early April, with the screaming winds from the Pacific coming in to the coast of California. So uh, I hope that answers your question. Um, okay, back to
You just mentioned a
WPC.
name on the chat. You just mentioned a name on the chat board. I have not heard this name in a long time. This dates back to me when I was in college back in the '70s. Lance Bossart, who was up at the University of Albany and wrote a number of different papers on atmospheric science. And I haven't
Yes,
heard
and I've
Bossart.
read his stuff.
Yeah,
He's on the chat board.
no. His name was mentioned by Tom Contino
Oh,
in terms of length of pattern changes. And Lance Bossart is somebody who has written just about everything that you need to know about anything and everything about meteorology. Usually, Lance Bossart has tackled it, written a paper about it, and published it. So,
um, Ertz, DJZ, and Ruben Fairchild again, also kind of asking the same question: why a pattern change from warm to cold takes more time than from cold to warm? Okay, so let's just address the fact of using words cold and warm, because that's all pretty relative. Um, some, if you're talking about the day-to-day weather experience, you can certainly have warm days in a cold weather pattern. So, I'm not sure why. I'm not sure what you're getting at. I'm actually, I kind of do. So when you're in a really cold air mass pattern like we were last week, when that cold air pulls out and there's no cold air left, okay, you're going to reflexively see your temperatures rise quickly. Okay. But I'm not referring to that when I'm talking about pattern change. I'm not talking about what's happening at the ground. I'm talking about what the upper air looks like. Okay. So it has to come with a corresponding change in the upper air. That could be a longer process. And you could be in a cold pattern, but ridges and troughs kind of, they ebb and flow. They they strengthen, they weaken. Uh, but it may appear that it may appear at least at ground level that those changes turn faster. I could certainly argue that you get a cold air mass coming in a warm pattern, that's a fast change. But I'm really talking about the upper air, and the upper air is a different conversation than what the ground. And of course, your location means everything. So, you could be in the 60. I've seen it where it's been in the 60s in South Jersey, and it's in the 20s. It's in the teens and low 20s in North Jersey and snowing. So, it makes a difference where you're standing when you ask that question.
Yes.
Am I right?
Yes. Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay. All right, so here's the rainfall setup in the east. And remember, it's been raining for a few days now across the Gulf states, so we're talking about an additional 3 to maybe 5 inches of rain from Louisiana northeastward into eastern Tennessee and the western North Carolina. Uh, for the Northeast, and again, this is a 7-day forecast, so this goes to next Wednesday night. We're looking at an inch to some areas, an inch and a half plus of liquid. And that's going to include the Sunday Monday system from eastern Pennsylvania to southern New England. Amounts tail off a bit as you get up into Maine, only a half an inch there. Not much rain in Florida, hardly any precipitation up in the northern plains, and heavy rains continuing uh, in the Pacific Northwest from just north of San Francisco all the way up to Vancouver, where several to many inches will fall in the next 7 days. And here's the sad snow map, Joe. It's January 24th. This is what the snow maps looked much of the time in December, where we were struggling to find anything. And it's all in northern Maine, where we have high probabilities of at least 2 inches for central and northern Maine over the next 72 hours. And out in the west, it's it's a yawn. There's no Arctic air anywhere in the United States right now, and this is what most of the month of December was like.
Right. And there's absolutely no reason to believe that it's going to stay this way now through March or early April. It could very well be that we're in, as I said yesterday, maybe an alternating pattern of weather where, December, we had the mild air, then we got cold, and then we got mild again. Who's to say that maybe, and there are some signals and signs that maybe by mid February, though I know a few people can't stand to have to wait that long, but that the cold air will again make a return appearance.
Comes when it comes. All
Yes.
right, WPC for Sunday into Monday. This is a forecast that was done earlier today before noontime, so um, it's done from the overnight guidance, and the overnight guidance that they used. They're not especially bullish for snow, even in the areas inland. They've got a 10 to 30% chance in the light green, northeast Pennsylvania, northwest New Jersey, the Hudson Valley, mostly north of Route 84, interior Connecticut. The darker greens, 30 to 50% in the Catskills, the Berkshires, and I don't know I forgot what these mountains are in central Mass that go up into New Hampshire. Chuck, are you there? But at least from the overnight guidance. Now, I we'll see what they do with this tomorrow. I honestly don't, I myself I don't have a clue. But um, let's look at the upper air going forward, okay? And with regards to what's going on now, so we're up to Wednesday, and here we were at Wednesday. So this is today. Big ridge in the Bahamas, ridge along the east coast. You've got this southwest flow. Here's a short wave that's moving through West Texas, and your flow comes in from the Pacific, bottoms out across Mexico, and then comes all the way up into the eastern part of the United States. And the other part of this flow comes in off the Pacific and runs right across the Canadian border into southern Canada. So obviously, there's no polar connection really. All the cold air is well up to the north. So that's what we're starting with. Now, let's roll along. The short wave comes out, the ridge begins to flatten, and now we're at Friday night. And you'll notice that there's more energy that comes into the Pacific Northwest tonight that is going to drive southward into Texas. There's your upper low. And here we are. So I'm going to bring it to Sunday morning. Okay, so there we are Sunday morning. So what do we got? Now, uh, that's what we're starting with. That's in the blue. The flow in Canada now turns northwest into New England. You've got this upper low, and there's probably some kind of surface low with that is riding into the flow. Now here's the issue. Uh, you've got the upper low, but you've got northwest winds from just north of Lake Superior through New England. So it's a delicate balance. There will be some colder air that's going to come down, and we'll show you on the surface that actually a fairly strong surface high is going to build in Quebec province. So what happened? The upper low comes east. It's fighting that northwest flow just to its north, so it can't lift up. This is the 18Z GFS, and you see what happens to it. It gets into West Virginia. It's got a positive tilt to it, so it's going to get swept eastward if this is correct. It opens up, actually drops down off the Virginia coast, and then gets shunted to the southeast. And there's other short waves in that northerly flow that are coming down that are pushing it along. So when I saw this, Joe, I was saying, you know what? That to me says that um, there's a chance that this could get mostly suppressed to the south, if that's correct. Okay. So now let's look at the European, shall we?
Surely, I got
So
to tell you,
here's
a lot of people. I'm just doing a quick check here. A lot of people jumping up and down on social media about Sunday night and Monday.
no, I know. Of course they are. Um, as they put up unlicensed maps on the air, but that's on social media, but that's another story. The Europeans got a slightly different look to this. The European has the northwest flow in Canada actually pulls up just a little bit, just enough to leave room here for this cutoff flow to not go to a positive tilt, but actually go to a more neutral tilt. You see it there. And the upper low maintains its identity as it moves right over central New Jersey and off the New Jersey coast sometime Monday afternoon. So you've got some fairly decent upper air dynamics with this, if this is correct, and you have higher pressures at the surface to the north of it that will feed down some cold air. So I will just say that the European did this in early January, and when it came closer to the time frame. The high was nowhere near as strong as what was being modeled, and you can see it here on the surface. Now, this map, by the way, just as a reminder, does not show precipitation type. So this is not, this is it's green, but it's not necessarily all rain. And you can see what happens to the surface flow here, Joe. It goes across Mississippi and Alabama, gets into western North Carolina, and then goes east northeast off the Virginia coast. And at the same time, you've got that 35 high to the north, uh, east of James Bay. So this would create a scenario where you're going to get northeast winds, cross isobaric, northeast winds that will bring down low level cold air into the circulation of this low, at least in the world that the European lives in. And the European was certainly cold enough to actually produce some fairly generous snow amounts. But I will tell you that um, the GFS solution of a suppressed look is every bit as possible as this is. So there's no way this to me shows any kind of clarity. We know there's going to be something there, but the balance here is very delicate between the colder air to the north and the low to the south.
Yeah, to me, it looks like rain for Sunday, and then during Sunday night, maybe rain changing to snow from north to south. But again, highly uncertain because of the uncertainty of the track of the actual low and where the cold air with the high that you mentioned will be positioned as well. Interesting, but or as you might say, Joe, fascinating.
Yeah, no, it definitely is fascinating. I certainly see how it could happen. And we've had situations like this before where we've been in generally warm pattern, but some colder air sneaks in and creates a snow scenario. So I'm not going to completely rule it out, but at the same time, I can't with any confidence say that the Europeans' idea is more possible is possible um, versus versus the GFS. Now, if you want some support, we could take a look at the icon model, and the icon um, which oftentimes mirrors the European. So, and here we have at least the precip type, so you can see it. And you can see it does bring cold air down. And it also holds that high. And I don't know if that's correct, but it does hold that high in eastern Canada while this low is going out underneath. So you're going to have to get enough cold air to come down. That's another question. We don't know. The one variable here, Joe, that we don't know is how much low-level cold air is going to be able to get far enough south. I think that's a very critical question here.
Yeah, and as I said, if we do see a change over to snow, I don't anticipate it to happen until now. I'm taking the maps at face value, and of course they're going to change over the next 2 or 3 days. But right now, taking at face value, the low level cold air may not get in here until sometime after midnight, Sunday night, Monday morning. And it seems that Joe, it seems like it's getting colder first up top before it gets cold down near the surface
Right.
to the white
And,
stuff.
and it could be a situation too if there is a little vigorous upper low there could be some dynamic cooling and sometimes the models don't take that into account very well. So that's another part of this equation that you have to consider. And okay, so if you want to know what the pivotal maps, so yeah, I could show a few of the pivotal snow maps. Okay. Um, so anyhow, I'll this
As
is
everybody on the chat board is probably saying, please do.
all right. Well, yes. Well, this was the 18Z GFS, the courtesy of Pivotal Weather, uh, and I pay a license fee every year for these maps, just so you know, so I can show these. But if you don't, you're not allowed. You're not supposed to. Uh, not unless you want a cease and desist order. But this was the 18Z GFS across northern Pennsylvania. And also, you could see the giant snow holes that are around. And I'll go to the tri-state, the New York, New Jersey, Connecticut tri-state area. By the way, we, when we say tri-state area, Joe, we really need to be specific to say it's the New York, New Jersey, Connecticut tri-state area because there are a lot of tri-state areas around the country.
Right.
So, just to make it clear to that are watching from other parts of the country, we don't want them to get confused. And of course, if there's something going on in those areas, we certainly will talk about it. So this was the late GFS, the 18Z GFS, which had nothing on the coast and had produced several inches inland. Now, the other problem with these snow maps is that if you look at the surface map on some of these, they're going to show they might show you sleet and it's being calculated as snow, and these are all 10-to-1 ratios, which is going to be another question if it were to snow. What are the ratios going to be, because it's not going to be you know if it gets cold enough it'll be just down to near the freezing mark or maybe a little bit below. And if you want to see the European, which I know everybody does, I'll bring those up because those are the ones that they want to come true, Joe. So here's the European, which has, um,
Ah!
yeah, I mean, it's got a foot plus in northern New Jersey. Actually, you know what? I was thinking about this earlier, and now it's come back, and I wanted to bring this to you. Does this not remind you of the kind of system that you might see in November or early December or in March? Because it definitely has this sort of spring look to it with the warm pattern.
Yeah.
In other words, if this does wind up happening, we're going to start having to play games with elevation-driven snows as well.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
doesn't it look like that?
Well, to a degree, I mean, there's such a difference between the European and the GFS anyway.
Oh
Does
yeah, I mean this is
the plumes go out that far?
actually they go out to 96 hours. So let's see what the SREF, the new SREF will take us out see, what's the last period here? 87 hours, and that's 7 a.m. Sunday, so it doesn't go out far enough. No.
Yeah.
So that's 7 a.m. Sunday. I will show you. We could look at the. Let's look at the Ann Shambles, and you know, hold on, I gotta set the right map to it. 10 to 1. These are the Ann Shambles. Now, oddly enough, the ensembles are actually interesting. Both the GFS and the European ensembles, at least the 12Z run. This one is the 18Z run of the Ann Shambles, and that takes us right through the whole event because this goes to 1 p.m. Tuesday. It actually gives a couple of inches to New York City, and then you just go not too far north and west, you start to get to 6 plus. Hudson Valley, Connecticut, north of Route 84, mostly north of Route 84, I guess. But the Ann Shambles are actually showing something, and we can take the 18Z GFS ensembles, take a look at those, and even the Ann Shambles on the GFS, they got a coating to an inch down to the coast and a few inches inland. I would not expect to see more than what they're producing. So the fact that the ensembles are showing it lends to some support to maybe something happening. But again, the way it's gone, especially for the coast, Joe. I'm kind of tempted. I'm just really sort of looking at this as don't hold your breath on what the European is doing.
I 5 days out, Joe. Things are going to change. Interesting, fascinating. I'm not, what did I say? I said on my Facebook forecast, rain on Sunday, rain may change to snow Sunday night, and snow maybe early Monday, and
And
that's
left
it.
it at that.
I left it
All
at
right.
that.
The CFS model for you long range, uh, pretty much the same. So this is from February 7th on. It starts to look colder, especially for the middle and South Atlantic states, and down in across the South. And then take a look at this now for the 14th to the 21st. That's not a shabby looking trough in the eastern part of the United States, folks. That's fairly impressive. So, this almost implies that they'll probably be, we'll be back into that Canadian train of cold air. I don't know if it'll be as brutal as the last one, but it does have a pretty cold look here. This is from the 14th to the 21st of February. This is from the 21st to the 28th of February, still holding trough in the east, ridge in the west, and from the 28th, which is the last week in this 6 week period, to March 6th, you still have relatively deep troughing in the east and ridging in the western United States. So to go back to Mr. Ruben Fairchild's question, if the CFS is right, this is a pattern that might have some staying power and last for more than 2 weeks.
Right, and it did. As I said, it looks like I have been saying, if we do get anything significant or trending back to cold and wintry type conditions, probably we'd have to wait until about mid-February. Not
Yep,
barring, of course, anything that we get this weekend or late this weekend.
correct, correct. Okay, so how about we do a little Briller Jeopardy, shall we?
Yes, I believe I have the Briller Jeopardy questions tonight. I just have to go get them. And
Okay.
here they are. On this Briller Jeopardy, we discuss again average snowfall in January. And so we have number one on the list, Seattle. Seattle.
Well, okay. I'm sorry. I was reading the chat board. I didn't hear what you said. So, what is it? The average January snowfall for Seattle?
Yes.
Um. Oh God, it's raining hard. It's banging on my roof. I will say 2 inches.
What did you say?
2 inches.
You're at it again, Joe. 2 inches. That's it.
Okay.
How about Yosemite Sam's favorite town, St. Louis?
St.
St.
Louis.
Hey, Louie! Emma!
I will say for St. Louis, I will say, hmm, I'll say 6.
Not letting anybody play, Joe,
I
tonight.
know. I did it last night too. I got the first two.
Yeah.
All right. So on to the third one.
How about Tulsa, Oklahoma,
Oh, Tulsa. I will say,
where Cowboy Bill Watts came from? Those of you professional wrestling fans.
I'll say, three, four. I'll say 4. Okay.
But we do have two people who have hit it right on the nose since you gave them that chance, Joe.
All right.
Patrick Darcy and Rich Rothmansky. 2 inches.
2.
Two.
I was debating in my mind whether to go 3 or 4. So I went with 4, but it's 2. Okay.
No, I don't mean Cowboy Bob Orton, Tom Contino. Cowboy Bill Watts was probably before your time, so. Virginia Beach, Joe.
Virginia Beach,
Yes. Not Norfolk, Virginia.
Virginia Beach.
Yes.
1 inch.
Eh,
All
eh.
right. Well, I don't know. I just said 1 inch. I was thinking that it was Virginia Beach, like right on the water,
Uh-huh.
right at the edge of the beach.
Well, Vincent Croce?
Croce,
Croce? You got it, Vincent.
like
3.
like Jim Croce.
Yes. Congratulations. You win something out of the Spiegel catalog,
Right.
60609. Yes.
The
How about
famous Spiegel catalog company, Spiegel, Chicago, Illinois, 60609.
yes. How about Washington D.C. for number 5?
I'll say Washington, I think, is only like 18 or something for the season. So I'll say 5.
He did it again, folks. But we do have a bonus. We do have a bonus. Flagstaff.
Oh, you know what? I'm going to let the chat board do this because I hit 3 of them on the nose
All
tonight. So
right.
I'll let the chat board do this one.
Flagstaff, Arizona. Hmm.
I was gonna say like 25, but don't ring the bell if I hit it on the nose. I'll say 25.
No need to because we already have 2 winners. Rich Rotmansky and Brandon Grablachoff. 20. 20 inches in
20.
January. 20. You were
Well,
5 of
all right. Well, I still got so close to the other ones that the mountain climber didn't make it 25 steps up and fall into the abyss.
exactly.
So I will
And Rich
I'll,
Rotmansky says he wins a year's supply of turtle wax.
turtle wax. Yes, of course. It's still around, turtle wax.
I would believe it.
I've seen it.
Yeah.
I have seen it. All right. So, I think we could wrap it up here, don't you think?
I think so. Last count, we had 118 likes, although I'm just updating it now to see if no, we have 147 likes. So still fairly good. And we thank everybody for that.
Yeah. Thank you for being here tonight. So we'll let you know tomorrow if there's a need for us to add a show. Okay. Uh, we'll we'll see, but we may have an idea tomorrow whether we're going to add a show for Friday or Saturday, or possibly both. I don't know.
Well,
Well,
we just maybe we'll just call it quits and say the heck with it. By the way, somebody's birthday is this weekend, isn't it?
it's mine.
Yes.
It's Saturday. Actually, my granddaughter's birthday's today, so we're having a tea party on Saturday.
Oh,
So, so I'll be at the tea party.
well, we'll have to somehow recognize your natal day. If not Sunday, then maybe Saturday or
Well, yeah, let's see if we have a if we have a if we get a storm, if this storm becomes something uh of note, uh then we'll add an extra show and we'll figure it out somehow.
yes.
All
Okay.
right.
All right.
So thanks everybody for being here. And I know it was a late start tonight. We're back to a normal start tomorrow,
Yes.
7:35 p.m. Eastern time.
Yes, sir.
Okay, very good. All right. Excuse me. Um, have a great night, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Righto.
Bye bye.
Blah.